Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our special show on the India-UK FTA. In fact, the India-United Kingdom Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement is coming into force tomorrow. The operationalization of the trade deal is historic. In fact, it ushers in one of country's most ambitious free trade agreements. In fact, according to the Commerce Secretary, this is one of the first FTAs of its kind which establishes a future-oriented economic architecture between the two major economies of the world, India and the United Kingdom. Let's listen into what the Commerce Ministry had to say. We have some bites from Rajesh Agarwal, India's Commerce Secretary, along with Darpan Jain, who's an additional secretary at the Ministry of Commerce. And this is what they had to say earlier in the day today at a press briefing.
Defining moment in India's trade history. This is one of its first FTA of its kind, which establishes a future-oriented economic architecture between the two major economies of the world. This is also one of the most ambitious and aspirational FTAs of India, which we are operationalizing as till date. If you look at, we call it a gold standard and first of its kind FTA because of its wide sectoral coverage and deep reduction in both tariff and non-tariff barriers. The 30 chapters across which negotiations have taken place under this agreement extends well beyond conventional tariff liberalization.
It's a trade agreement between two economies of almost 10 trillion and trade of almost 2.5 trillion. And if we see, both the economies have very good balance between goods and services. India is also a major exporter of services. UK also has a very significant export of services. In fact, good trade balance in services. If we see the bilateral trade between India and UK, India has surplus both on goods as well as services. So our total trade presently, as you can see, is 25 billion in goods and 35 billion in services. So approximately 60 billion is the current bilateral trade. So the target is to enhance this trade to 100 billion by 2030.
Absolutely. So $60 billion is the current size of bilateral trade between India and the United Kingdom. And the target of both the countries is to take it up to $100 billion by 2030. In fact, Commerce Ministry officials also said that there are complementarities as far as this trade deal between India and the UK is concerned. And 98% of goods from India will be duty-free starting tomorrow. And of course, the government is laying down all mechanisms and procedures to ensure that there is facilitation that is free of any challenges. Overall, the FTA is aspirational and balanced, but what does it really mean for economies of both the sides and the kind of complementarities that it will further generate in years to come? We are now joined in by Harjinder Kang. He's the UK Trade Commissioner for South Asia and former UK Chief Negotiator, UK-India FTA. Thank you very much, Mr. Kang, for taking the time out and speaking to us here on ET Now. Now, the UK-India FTA comes into force tomorrow after years of negotiations. Given global disruptions in trade and rising protectionism, why is this agreement, in your opinion, a milestone, especially when it comes to ties between the two countries?
The UK-India FTA is an amazing deal, which has taken almost 5 years to actually put together. And it's because it's the broadest, deepest, widest deal that India's ever done, pretty much with anyone. And it's actually the biggest deal that the UK's ever done since we've left the EU. And so we're delighted that after almost 4 or 5 years of very intense negotiations, we've come to a very good conclusion. And it's a win-win deal for both sides. And that's why it took so long to make sure that it was balanced and that both sides got enough in terms of what their stakeholders needed in order for it to be acceptable to both economies. And as you rightly say, the world is in a bit of a turmoil when it comes to trade at the moment, and having strong bilateral agreements between two nations that have seen eye to eye on many things over the years and has long history between itself, that this is a really good build on all of the things that have happened over history between the two countries.
Right, Mr. Kang, and what is the single biggest change that businesses and consumers will start noticing from day one, which is tomorrow, and how does the UK government plan to aid exporters?
Yeah, I mean, basically, on the 15th of July, the deal goes live. And so the essence of that is the tariff lowering processes that we've agreed will come into effect. So they will see both sides prices of potential products that come into each other's countries are now viable. Maybe they weren't in the past because of the tariff arrangements. Now they are. And if they were already before, the prices would be lower. And therefore, the end customer, the person on the ground, will see cheaper, faster, easier access to Indian and UK products. And that will benefit both economies. That's the biggest single immediate impact.
Right, Mr. Kang. Now, speaking about bilateral trade, well, it's already been growing over the past couple of years. But in terms of the additional trade that you expect to come in from this agreement, how much do you think will be generated over the next few years, even though the government of India just stated this afternoon that $100 billion is something that the Indian government is looking at up till 2030 in terms of bilateral trade. But in the near term, let's say 2 to 3 years, how much of trade do you expect this FTA to generate?
I mean, essentially, we already have a good, thriving trading relationship between the two countries. And the excitement that the deal, while we were negotiating it, the excitement created has already led to an increase in business between the two countries. We used to do something close to 45-ish billion. It's gone to 48 already. That 48 billion is purely as a result of increased trade between our two nations without the FTA even coming into force. And that's primarily because of the excitement that we've generated as a result. Now, if you look at the calculations that have been done, the deal in itself will add 25.5 billion extra on top of that over the next few years or so. That's a significant increase on our current. I actually think it would be higher than that because, quite frankly, you put in some estimates that are, should we say, realistic. But the way that everybody's talking about this deal, the way that everybody's already started to trade between the two nations, building on already what they do, I think it'll be very exciting going forward. GDPs, both countries will have roughly 5 billion. I think the UK is 5.1 extra in terms of its GDP addition. Sorry, that's India, sorry. India will have about 5.1. UK is about 4.8. So almost 5 billion each additional GDP. So I think that as a whole, economically, it's very advantageous for both countries. In terms of sectors, I mean, it's the things that you would expect from economies like the UK and economies like India. I mean, the UK, the headline things that you've seen probably over the last few years is, our sort of alcohol industry, specifically Scotch whisky, for example, where the tariffs are reduced significantly. Automotive sector, where tariffs are reduced significantly. Things like medical devices. And, think cosmetics. UK is very big in cosmetics. So those are the sort of things that we're good at, which the Indian system loves and Indian consumers would want to have more of. The other way, Indian textiles and apparel, Indian leather, Indian spices, Indian seafood, it's the things that India is good at. And India was very keen to ensure was covered by the deal. And so I think there were two very, very complementary economies. And therefore, when we first looked at the structure, there was very little head-on competition on pretty much anything. This is why it made such good sense to do such a deal.
Absolutely, Mr. Kang. Now, speaking of one of the segments, and it's been a segment of immense interest, at least here in India, the auto segment is a significant piece of the FTA document. In fact, there are quotas as far as the entry of vehicles from the United Kingdom to India is concerned. That's concessional quota, and that quota goes down each passing year. There are no quotas for EVs from the United Kingdom. But what's the kind of access and advantages that the sector will get in the UK market in terms of, what will automakers sort of get as far as the UK market is concerned, because when we talk about the Indian market, it is one of the largest markets, and of course we have a huge demographic dividend to capitalize on that as well.
Yeah, it's a two-way thing. It's not just a one-way flow. Essentially, the tariffs currently are around 110% for UK manufacturers sending into India. And essentially, what will happen over time, that will go down to 10%. And specifically, the internal combustion engine cars will be able to take advantage of that from day one. And under a quota system, so that, you know, if there is any concern that the Indian system is going to get flooded by UK cars, that was always something that we could it'd be premium UK cars that will be coming to India from the UK. Things like the Jaguar Land Rover brands, the Aston Martin brands, and so on. Those would be the ones that most people are sort of waiting for patiently. The electric vehicles will be untouched for the first 5 years. They come into play from year 6. And again, you know, this was to ensure that our electric vehicle manufacturing capabilities across both economies didn't face mass competition from each other if there was any worries on that front. And so that's what the current overall shape of it looks like.
Absolutely, Mr. Kang, this is a balanced agreement, which essentially means that there are opportunities on the UK side as well, on the Indian side too. But one final question before we let you go. Beyond goods, what opportunities does the FTA create for investments from both the sides?
There's a lot of investment already. India is the second largest investor into the UK in terms of projects after the United States. And it's been like that for probably the last 5-6 years. So it's already there. We have over 1,000 companies of Indian origin in the UK, employing many, many people between them. And then I think we have over 700, 800 companies, I think it is now, that actually are present now in India. I suspect there'll be more coming in the future with respect to investment into India. Very recently, I had the pleasure of attending an inauguration of a brand new facility in Madhya Pradesh. One of the big healthcare companies of the UK decided to open a new facility in India. And that's something which I think will be encouraged by the fact we're going to have a trading relationship through a free trade agreement called the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement, so CETA for short. That's actually going to create confidence, and confidence is what businesses need in order to make long-term, investments in each other's economies, shall we say.
Absolutely, Mr. Kang. All eyes are on tomorrow when this FTA becomes operational, and we're given to understand that there's going to be a briefing by India's Commerce Ministry as well. We do hope to engage with exporters and industry members. But on that note, thank you very much once again for sharing your thoughts and your expectations from this FTA once it comes into effect tomorrow. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, it's now time for us to step into a short commercial break, but you don't go anywhere, as we will be in conversation with Kishore Jayaraman. He's a Group CEO at UK IBC. He'll be joining us shortly right after this short break. Thank you very much for staying tuned.